Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Mahoney. I am the Vice President of Business Development. We got to work on that intro for Thesis. Effectively, you can think of us as a fund building Bitcoin products, or said another way, a Bitcoin venture studio. Today, I'll be talking about the circular economy with Bitcoin. We have quite a few products in the portfolio and are in the process of launching a couple more that what we think is sort of the next unlock for Bitcoin and Bitcoin use cases. Skip the title slide there. All right, so this is a little bit about Thesis. So as we said, we're a venture builder. You can kind of think of us as a fund of funds, quite similar. We're very Bitcoin focused. Everything we do aligns with the Bitcoin narrative and vision, meaning it's all open source, all on chain. And we have a big focus also on decentralization and self-sovereignty, meaning focusing on things like privacy, no black boxes, that sort of thing, no FTX type products. These are some of our portfolio companies as well. On the left, that's Fold. It's a Bitcoin neobank in the US that's starting to expand globally. It has about 700,000 monthly active users. We have Keep and TBTC, which are Bitcoin bridges, allow you to use your Bitcoin in other chains and ecosystems. We have Mezo, which I'm talking a little bit about today. It's a Bitcoin L2. And then we have another product called Acre, which is a Bitcoin yield product, Bitcoin staking. All right, so before I get into some of the details of our products, I want to just kind of touch on quickly where we are today. As a refresher, I'm sure a few of us are watching, or maybe more than a few. The price action on Bitcoin in the last week hasn't been too favorable post-halving. We're at about 1.3 trillion market cap. If you compare that to gold, right, we still have a ways to go in terms of the HODL or money under your mattress sort of use case, meaning just sort of betting on the speculative price. So we sort of think of it as comparable to gold in terms of market cap or our asset class. But really where we're sort of thinking going, okay, what's the best proxy? If you think about Bitcoin as a use case and sort of expanding beyond that, and ultimately if it's if you don't want to just be subject to price volatility, but also maybe use some other things for your Bitcoin, maybe get a loan, collateral, that sort of thing. It's really kind of building an economy around it, right? So if you think about the run-up and kind of actually when the U.S. started, many years ago, the dollar actually was tied to gold, right? And then eventually the collateral of gold behind the dollar was pulled away, and people just started using dollars to transact. So if you believe that history rhymes and doesn't repeat, but certainly rhymes, perhaps Bitcoin is on a similar trajectory. And so I like to sort of think of it as a narrative of this standpoint in terms of total addressable market and how Bitcoin can evolve over time. And that's certainly how we're thinking about it here at Thesis. So a little more into the data on Bitcoin itself as an asset class. So we're here, as you can see, somewhere in the 2024, 2023 kind of adoption cycle. It started out as a very fringe asset class way back in 2008, and was really only adopted by what are known as the cypherpunks or technologists, very fringe. And over time has gained mainstream adoption up until the Bitcoin ETF being launched later this year, and more public acceptance, right? But there's still a lot of work to be done to onboard the next billion in Bitcoin, billion people, and that's what we're focused on here at Thesis. And also quite interesting, as an asset class, Bitcoin dominance continues to increase. It's actually, that says 51%, but we're actually about 53% concentration right now in the total digital asset market cap. So when you compare it to Ethereum, this is a logarithmic chart, but it's only increasing, right? So if you think, if you're bullish on digital assets as an asset class in general, I think Bitcoin is a great place to continue to invest, and we're seeing that more and more in terms of as other use cases are unlocked. Also, HODLing, or which is the meme in crypto, I call it sort of money under mattress, or just being subject to price speculation and betting on the spot, is at all-time highs. About 15 million plus Bitcoin has been being HODLed, or it really hasn't moved in the last 12 months, right? Certainly there's people selling it and institutions selling it for fees and that sort of thing, but ultimately the main core use case for Bitcoin today is just holding it, right? And so if you want to unlock more growth and really continue to drive the price, especially now that the halving is behind us and it's harder to get the Bitcoin mined for miners in particular, new use cases needs to arise really to drive further value into the ecosystem. And it's not an off-chain based product like an FTX, right? So really what we're trying to do is open up on-chain economies. If you believe on-chain is the new online, that's really sort of where we're going. So as I touched on hodling the use case, or just the sort of the buy and hold it and cross your fingers, hope the price goes up, that's really the core use case. Stablecoins are also an interesting one, and no, these are not US dollar-backed stablecoins like USDC or US Tether that you may have heard of, but Bitcoin-backed stablecoins are actually a thing. There's quite a few of them in the space that are starting to pick up steam. Probably the most famous one is one called Wrapped Bitcoin, or WBTC, by a custodian in BitGo in the US. That's the biggest, but over the last 12 months, there's been about 4 to 5 different other ones that have been released, and this is a trend that's continually increasing. And you don't take credit risk with this thing. It's more of like a pegged asset that's tied to your underlying spot Bitcoin, but you can spend this dollar equivalent, effectively. And then NFTs is something we all know about. Maybe in the news recently from Runes, for example, if you know about that. This is Bitcoin NFTs in particular. Still a small market cap, but over the last 8 to 10 months, kind of depending on when you start, when ordinals came about, it's a pretty large number that's grown in under a year, right? And now there's more and more momentum there, opening up new fee streams for miners in particular, which I think is pretty interesting for the Bitcoin blockchain, and also has been clogging up the network, right? So there's definitely, we've found sort of the capacity and scaling problems with Bitcoin L1, so perhaps maybe there's a few other solutions, right? So, which brings me to scaling BTC. So kind of some of the challenges, right? I don't know, from a consumer or user experience point of view, and I'm not talking about like buying Bitcoin ETF or buying it on Coinbase or Kraken or Binance and exchange, but I'm talking about actually acquiring Bitcoin either through an on-chain economy and mining it, perhaps, or more so from a user experience standpoint, like through a wallet app or something that is more consumer-friendly, like a Fold that we have in our portfolio. There's a long way to go. Most of the positive user experiences you see today in terms of like buying and getting exposure to Bitcoin are through a third-party intermediary or broker, and it's a little bit of sort of the antithesis of what Bitcoin was about, right? It's building out sort of this open source economy and trying to do everything more and more on-chain and increasing the transparency of the way we transact. But it's pretty challenging to do that on Bitcoin L1 right now. And by the way, the same thing could be said about most of the other chains out there, Ethereum on down, right, in terms of if you look at the top 50 market cap. So this is a major area that we're super focused on at Thesis and increasing our investment into. Also, high cost and slow processing is mainly means the fact that now there's all these different assets being issued on the Bitcoin blockchain that are BRC20s like Bitcoin NFTs that are clogging the network. Extremely challenging and eat into your margin, especially if you're trying to run a business that taps into Bitcoin. So we think that's a huge area to be solved for, and also sort of aligned with, if you're familiar with Ethereum versus Solana, that's kind of like where Solana came about really, was because the Ethereum network was being clogged, and Solana came about and said, hey, we have a better way to transact and process transactions on the back end. So we think the sort of same thing will play out for Bitcoin L1, and there's a new sort of category emerging to solve this. And then fragmented liquidity is really just, how do we get sort of the consolidation through pipes, this cross-chain economy, and unlock Bitcoin use cases beyond just the HODL, core main use case. So what we're focused on is growing the pie. We're very much believers in rising tide lifts all boats sort of mentality. This is the new emergence of a global financial system that's powered by blockchains around the world. And we have launched a project called Mezo to do just that. It's a Bitcoin layer 2, and what that means is we call it the Bitcoin economic layer, but what that means is basically it's growing the pie for Bitcoin L1. It's tied to the underlying settlement layer on Bitcoin, so the spot asset that we all know that many of us have maybe held in this room or engaged with. This is a way for you to interact with Bitcoin in a one-to-one way. So we have a stablecoin as sort of the core asset on this that's Bitcoin-backed. And it's ultimately good for Bitcoin because it actually brings more use cases to the underlying spot asset in Bitcoin, which helps out miners, right? It helps out users. It improves the processing, the speeds, some of the other challenges that I was listing out earlier. And we announced actually about 2 weeks ago, and since then we've had a few $100 million come onto into the network of us plus a couple other Bitcoin L2s in the space, all in Bitcoin deposits. So we're pretty excited about this category. We think that there's an inflection point upon us in the Bitcoin development space, and so we've launched Mezo to sort of capture that and also unlock the value of our portfolio across the system. So that's it. Thank you very much. I will be on a panel, I think, next, correct? Yes. Awesome. Thank you.